Hi everyone, it's really lovely to be here. Thank you very much for having me. I've come all the way from Bath. Thank you, other Adam, for the invitation too. So my presentation is on mindfulness for developers. So I'm here to talk about mindfulness as a tool for increasing our well-being and supporting your happiness in your work as a developer. Has anyone here got experience of mindfulness or is a practitioner of mindfulness? Little bit? Can I ask you to share, why do you practice mindfulness or what does it do for you? Lovely, it helps you to relax, to focus and not to get irritated by the little things that pop up in the day. I think that's a really good summary. And they say that if there were a pill for such a thing, it would be going out of the doors. But we can achieve this ourselves. The thing is that it takes just a little bit of practice. But the upshot is that it increases your happiness. So here we have some happy developers. Look at them. The CEO even has Joy Division on his t-shirt. What is not to love? You might recognize them. These are the lovely guys from Seckle, and they work in Bath. And they're a happy bunch. But for us to secure our happiness, well, things can be tricky, can't they? This is my daughter here, Lucia. She's a developer, and she's taught me an awful lot about developing. I'm not a developer, but I work surrounded by them, and she's taught me a lot about mindfulness. Now, the thing that Lucia and I have in common, apart from blood and genes and so on, is that we have a similar makeup of brain. So when Lucia was about 12, and she speaks about this publicly, so hopefully she's happy for me to say, we identified that her gifts were because her brain was differently wired. She has Asperger's syndrome, and it took only about 2 years to realize that she got it from me. And so we investigated Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism, and we really started to understand what it means in terms of neurology. Now, this is a neurotypical brain, and this is the brain of a high-profile woman with Asperger's syndrome called Temple Grandin. Now, I'm not saying that my brain is wired like that, but what you can see is that with Asperger's, you're leaning towards a lot of neurological activity. And the thing that had happened for both Lucia and I is that we'd found that we were very reactive and that we were very sensitive to what was going on in life and in our environments, but also that we had a certain aptitude for focus as well. For Lucia, it developed into her being a brilliant coder. She became a full-time coder at the age of 18. But it set us to thinking about what sort of environments and practices help our brain to feel calm and to feel settled so that it can do its best work. And that's really when I came into practicing mindfulness. I went off and I did an 8-week, once a week, 8-week mindfulness-based cognitive therapy course. Now, I should say that this was only 7 years ago that I got my diagnosis. Up until that point, I had been plagued by mental health difficulties. I had moderate to severe mental health difficulties since the age of 16. So actually, the investigations that we were doing started to shine a light on how things could be very different. It was the mindfulness that made more difference to my life than anything else. So that's why I'm here to share it with other people. To encourage people to find out how their brain works. Your brain may or may not work like this, but to learn how in the workspace and in the home space to work with our brains so that it can give of our best. Learning about my brain made me reevaluate life. I stopped doing the work I'd been doing, which was management consulting, too much change, too much movement, and I practiced one solo thing, which was conflict resolution. I trained as a mediator. You may not think that that is a peaceful space to go into, but it uses my natural aptitude for wanting peace and resolution. And that's why I also train mental health in the workplace as well, because I understand that when we're collaborating together, it can be intense. So, I want to challenge this rather ironic cartoon that says, why there is no such thing as a happy developer. So, how long would a Twitter module take to develop? I would hazard a guess and say about 4 weeks, I think. Excellent, we're demoing to a client next Friday. So I don't know if this is familiar to you, but sometimes when we're trying to work with other people, they can bring certain challenges into our environment. And this guy's looking pretty unhappy about the situation, and we might imagine, well, what might he be thinking at that moment? It might take longer. Yeah, so he's like, yeah, I can do it in 4 weeks. He's now got 4 days or something.
Being nice.
Sorry?
He was just
He was just being
being nice.
nice, okay. So what sort of state is his mind in and now being told that they're demoing on Friday? Yeah. What Adam's saying is he's not in the most peaceful frame of mind, yeah. So the likelihood is that when somebody else, because when we're working in teams developing, we're not always in control of our own schedules, right? So when somebody else suddenly ups the ante, then, well, sometimes it's just time to go hard at it, isn't it? You're like, right, okay, we're demoing on Friday, okay. So our mind goes into a very active state. And our hands do the same. So I want us to take a minute, please, and I want you to look at your hands right now. Okay. And I want you to consider the extraordinary work that they did today. And I want you to reflect on how they are the bridge between your brilliant brain and the incredibly focused work that you do at your computer. Marvel at them. Now please place your hands, if you wish to, just reverently, respectfully on your lap and feel them there. Maybe they're on your thighs or maybe they're nestled one in the other, but keep consciousness of where your hands are and keep thinking about what they've done for you today, the amazing coding that you maybe did today and how brilliant they are. So now I'd like to invite you with that awareness of your hands, if you feel like it, to let your eyes close very gently. If you don't feel like that, you keep them open or lowered, or you can even look at the hands here. So now in this state, I want you to focus on each of your fingers, and maybe you start with the little finger of the right hand and you just press it. And then the next finger along the ring finger, and then the middle finger, and then the pointing finger, and the thumb. And in your own time, probably even more slowly now, move on to the other hand. Keeping focus on your hands, and I'm going to leave you there for maybe 10 seconds. Just focusing on your hands. Thank you. Gently thank your hands, and you can open your eyes. So I'd like to ask you what happened there. Is there anything that you notice? Notice, thank you for noticing this new notice. You're noticing it has been noted. What did you note or notice in that very small exercise?
Fingertips.
What did you notice about your fingertips?
That
That
they tingled.
they tingled, okay. Was that because you were focusing on them, or do you think they tingle the whole time and we're just not aware of
They
it?
don't focus, they tingle all the time.
Who knows, eh? Who knows? But there is something about when we bring our attention to any part of our body, the tingling is often part of what happens. And in fact, any of you who practice Qigong knows that that's something that can be directed. What else happened? What happened in your mind when you were focusing on your hands, particularly when I was quiet? Nothing.
For me, nothing.
For nothing. Fantastic. So did you get a sense of stillness?
Yes.
Excellent. Did everyone have complete stillness and silence in their mind?
Yes.
Yeah. Did anyone perhaps have a thought pass through? oh my God, I've reached the room of Zenness. This is fantastic. You might find, or you might have found that if we left it a bit longer, if I'd said, okay, I'm going to leave you here for 10 minutes, just focus on your hands, that thoughts might have come up. And the point is that our mind is constantly trying to give us things to think about. But when we give it space to be quiet, it does relax into it. But if we don't give it time to be quiet, and we don't give it the opportunity to stop and slow down by, for example, focusing on some part of our body as opposed to what's out in the world, then it can race on and race on and race on. So what even is mindfulness? Well, I would like to, I don't know if we've got a speaker on here. Has this got a speaker?
Yes.
Actually, I don't think it needs one because this is visual, okay. I'd like you to have a little look at this if it plays. You may not be surprised to discover that in this metaphor, your brain is this guy, okay? And the cars and the pedestrians and the traffic are all the tasks that you're dealing with, that you're responding to across the day. Your brain, your mind is awesome, isn't it? Woohoo! It can do great tricks, and I think as developers, the tricks that you pull out of the bag on a daily basis are exceptional. But imagine if this guy was dancing all day long. What would happen to him? Yes, he would eventually conk out. So when in our daily work, there's a lot coming to us. Each task, like the car or the bike, needs to be responded to and reacted to. And when our brain gets very tired, then sometimes we seek to try and switch it off and on again. But unlike our computers, that ain't so easy. So mindfulness is a practice of learning to give the brain a rest. And when you do it on a daily basis, or even a weekly basis, when you open up for yourself, for your mind, this idea that it can rest purely, completely rest, and not have to respond or react to anything, it starts to get stronger in the way that it responds to daily tasks in our life. So there is an app which many of you may have come across, which is called Headspace. So Headspace is an app which starts us off with 10-minute meditations. So what's the difference between mindfulness and meditation? Meditation is a definite activity. Mindfulness is definitely a state of being. Apps like Headspace take us through maybe a 10, a 20, a 30-minute guided meditation. But you can have a mindful experience just by the way that you walk along the street, clearing your mind of thinking and just observing what's going on about you and feeling your body. Mindfulness can be about stopping, putting your hands on your lap and focusing on them to give your mind a break. The relationship between the mind and the body is a very important one for developing a mindful state of mind. So why train your brain in this way? Let's have a little bit of brain science. Okay. In your brain, you've got we've all got something called the amygdala. Now, certainly for me being on the autism spectrum, my amygdala is slightly more reactive than a neurotypical one. And that's unfortunate because as you can see here, the amygdala is linked to what is the system that relates to fight or flight. So our amygdala is the bit that responds when there's a threat. So that guy that we saw in the earlier cartoon when he was told we're demoing on Friday, if he's feeling nervous about it, then his amygdala lights up and it goes, I know what to do about this. I'm going to send you adrenaline, I'm going to send you cortisol, and I'm going to have you going into that Jim Carrey frenzy at the computer. But if this happens time after time, then we get what's called an amygdala hijack. We're so sensitized that somebody says, right, can you just do this one last thing? And we can respond sometimes in an explosive manner, or sometimes with so much anxiety that we start to withdraw and retreat. And that's when things like depression can start to happen. So we really want to work with our amygdala so that we know how to slow it down. When we go into meditation, we're moving from what's called the sympathetic brain state, which is the one that's ruled by the amygdala, into the parasympathetic brain state. And that's the one that you have to rest and digest. So instead of waiting to go to sleep, we're triggering that sometime during the day. So now I'd like you to take a moment to visualize yourself at your screen. Everyone else has gone home. You're still working. But gently, over a few minutes, the lights start going down, and you can just see yourself, a reflection of yourself in your screen. So I'd like you to close your eyes just for a second and visualize yourself, just the reflection of yourself in the screen. So in this image, you're looking at yourself in the screen, and you take a big shrug, and you see your shoulders go up, and then they go down. And then you see the outline of your body breathing, and it's breathing in quite a sort of jerky fashion. But over time, you watch that image, and you see it's starting to breathe more smoothly. And as you're visualizing this, please breathe in time with that vision that you see on the screen. And feel the breath going into your body, filling your belly, and going out again. And you've got a sensation of the visual in front of you, but also more and more you've got a sense of the breathing going on in your belly. And what you might start to feel is the feeling of sand settling in water. And that is the mindful state. It's the state where the relaxation starts to happen. And as you take one more mindful breath after another, you're entering the parasympathetic state. So many chemical changes are happening in your body right now as you decommission your amygdala and you allow your whole neural system to calm and to steady. You're now steadying the vagal nerve, and your body knows what to do in this state. So I'm going to leave you there for maybe 5 seconds. And just focus on that breathing. Thank you. And open your eyes. So maybe now you've done 2 minutes of meditation. This is really what it's all about. What are the benefits of training your brain in this way? Well, I'm going to tell you, there are many. There are reasons why ninja warriors spend a heck of a lot of time meditating and not very much time fighting. Because when you have meditated, you're able to respond with much more precision and much more efficacy. Your brain sees everything much more slowly and is able to make the right move at the right moment. You're able to make better decisions because you've got a capacity for attending to what matters. Your mind is not full, you are mindful. You're poised to be able to take the choices that you want in your daily life. So should somebody... Mindfulness makes you very patient. Should somebody swoop in and shit on your work, then you've got more capacity for responding rather than reacting. This definitely, I thank my daughter for. Oh yes, you've got to mention seagulling and also squirreling. My understanding is that this is when a story is snuck into the work that you're doing by your manager. You're able to take on more rather than think, oh my God, if they stuff one more nut at me, I'm going to explode. It doesn't mean that you have to do everything, but you're able to react in the way that you would like to, including perhaps negotiating more time, or to be able to say calmly and assertively, I'm not able to do that. Impostor syndrome, that concern that we might have about not knowing as much as we think we should do, that settles because the amygdala and the ego are very closely related. So we're able to get out of the egoic state and be more free and more open to be able to say, this is what I know and what I don't know, and be comfortable. But really, what's important is that in doing a practice like this, we're going to prevent burnout. So anyone can become exhausted. What is so poignant about burnout is that it mainly strikes people who are highly committed to their work. You can only burn out if you've been in a light in the first place. So in undertaking this act of mental self-care, you're allowing yourself to keep animated, you're allowing yourself to kindle the passion that maybe started you in your career or started you at the beginning of the day or the week. So how to get started as a mindful developer? There are lots of ways. You've already got started just today in those 2 minutes of practice. So you can use a Headspace app, for example, or many others. Headspace is free to start off with, and then it's a subscription. I want to give you that as a recommendation if it's somewhere that you would like to start. But there are lots of others. This is just one that's really tried and tested and that you can download and use at any time. You can read books. I've got one of them here. This is a kind of classic on mindfulness, and it has a CD at the back. As I mentioned, the relationship between body and mind is crucial. Move your body, your brain and your mind really love it. So this is one way of doing it, but really, the best thing to do is to get outside as often as you can. Being mindful in nature is good stuff. Nature begs us to be mindful. The environment is begging us to be more mindful. Nature itself is mindful. So sit by a tree, get by some running water, and that will help you get into that parasympathetic state. This is really about our mental health as well as our professional success and well-being. So these are from the Economics Foundation, 5 ways to well-being. 1 is to connect with other people, talk and listen. Sometimes when we've been mindful, we're able to say, yeah, I can slow down and there's time for me to talk to other people. Be active, get outside, move your body, take notice. This is really what mindfulness is about. It's about taking our attention back for ourselves and being able to place it where we would like it and where it's going to fill our heart and our souls. Keep learning and also give of your time, your words and your presence. There's lots out there in terms of self-care for developers. And I wanted to use this word because mindfulness is about self-care. All of us are under pressure in our work and our home lives, and learning to love ourselves and take care of ourselves is so important. And similarly, there are some really great bodies like OSME, which is open sourcing mental illness. This is changing how we talk about mental health in the tech community. There's great material there where you can learn, but you can also share. But really, what I'm here to say is, wow, you guys have amazing brains. So love your brain and treat it well, and it will look after you. Yeah, that's a beautiful question. So Adam said, is this about living in the now? Very much so. So the mind has a tendency to tell stories, so it wants to go to the future. It's worrying about what you're going to do next, or it wants to go over the past, like, well, she said to me and he said to me, or did I make a mistake, or oh my God, I embarrassed myself. But when we're in the future or the past, then we're often in a state of angst, or we're trying to move one way or the other. So yeah, absolutely, that practice of focusing our attention on what really is, like our hands, or our breathing, or the trees around us, frees us from that future or past thinking, and ultimately, yeah, we're in the now, where actually there's nothing to say, there's nothing to think about, things can be peaceful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
What time of day do you find it's best to be in that mindful state?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I practice in the mornings, so I take a coffee, I take a coffee back to bed, and I read something which is calming, which is inspiring. I personally meditate in bed. So it might be with an app, or it might be with a YouTube video of something relaxing, or a guided meditation. I like to kind of change it up quite a lot. And I will normally meditate for 10 or 15 minutes. If I can get to 20, that's great. Something special happens after 30 minutes. I'm going to leave you with that idea. It really does. And then I get out of bed and I practice about 10 minutes of Qigong. Sometimes with a YouTube video. I've been studying Qigong for many years. So that's a kind of like, that's moving meditation in a sense, but it also stretches out my body. Yeah, so the morning's good for me. Evenings I tend to fall asleep. Michael was just saying that he meditates in the morning and in the evening, and maybe on the bus as well, and that you said that in that practice you are able to understand what the problem is more clearly. This is a really good thing because people think, oh, well, it's just zoning out. I said, were there any thoughts? And Adam said, no. What's beautiful is that after some extended time, often you get clarity about problems that you couldn't solve, or you get inspiration, insight. So the other thing I do with my morning meditation is I journal, because man, I get some good ideas. Towards the end of my meditation, and I'm happy to note those down. So yeah, thanks, Michael. So the question was how long do you need to practice before you see the benefits? And Michael was saying, well, from the very first time. And I think I would say with the Headspace app, I think they give you 10, I think it's sort of like get going with 10 sessions or something like that. And so I committed to those 10 sessions, and by the end of 10 days, a streak of 10 days, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I was definitely noticing the difference. I probably needed a good 10 days. I needed the inspiration and motivation to commit to 10 days, to see the benefit and for it to become a bit of a habit. So yeah, somewhere between one time and maybe 10 days, and then you'll start to see for yourself. So the question was, can teams integrate this? So one, I would say, is having a culture and environment where it's okay to talk about mindfulness, the state of mind, and our well-being. That might encourage individuals themselves to feel that within the group they can do it, they can talk about it. But there are, any ways in which a team can be mindful together. It's very powerful, because there's something, I would say, energetically that happens when people get very still together. So it really depends on what the team is, and it might be that it's about going for a walk together. But group meditation is powerful. It's bonding, it's powerful, and because there's some trust and vulnerability in there as well. So it would depend on each team. Great, definitely. And I think that certain people have written about running as definitely a form of meditation, because the brain, there's something about the endorphins as well, it gets us into a good state. But the repetitive action, and I think as long as one can allow the mind to sink into a vague association and attention on perhaps the feet or the movement, and allow thoughts to go away, then you're in a mindful state, aren't you? As long as that bike ride is not chuntering around like, in the mind. But people can meditate, sit for 30 minutes, and they're not meditating, they're chuntering. So if we can just gently take our mind very compassionately and say, yeah, it's fine just to focus on the movement of the bike, or to focus on the sound of my feet, and let the thoughts go and come back to them later, is fantastic, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.